Irish Americans have a long and storied history in the NYPD. A retired detective named Luke Waters, he just wrote a memoir where he shares some incredible stories, and he also provides a lot of insight into the department. A short time ago, I spoke with Waters about his book titled NYPD Green. All right, how did a kid who grew up in a tough area of Dublin, who wanted to end up being a cop and a detective, how come that happened in the South Bronx instead of in Ireland?
Well, I suppose people need to understand, Richard, where I come from. Growing up in Dublin City in the 1970s and the 1980s, we had nothing. We came from a place where unemployment was 25%. Ireland was riddled with crime and a recession. Like where I grown up, robberies was the norm. Houses were burglarized. Even my father himself was shot at in an armed raid in Dublin City. With all this, we had the troubles of Northern Ireland, where bombs used to go off in Dublin City. A couple of dozen people killed, hundreds of people injured. And with all this is what led to mass emigration. And that was one of the big reasons why I had left Ireland and emigrated to the United States. But also growing up, my dream was to be a homicide detective or to be a police officer. And after I'd emigrated to the United States and I got the opportunity to join the NYPD, that's where I fulfilled my dream.
Well, before we even get there, you have a unique perspective on certainly a big issue in this election, which is to be an illegal immigrant and what to look at it. Before you wore the police uniform, you yourself could be defined that way as well, right?
You're correct. We came here in search of work. We wanted to work, pay our taxes, serve the American people. We didn't come in here to commit no crimes. We came here to work like everybody did back then. But thank God for me, I was one of the lucky ones, and I got what's known as a Donnelly visa, which led for me to becoming an American citizen.
I want to ask you about a few things that certainly are in the headlines now with policing and your perspective, especially now being off the job. Certainly, this mayor and his relationship with the NYPD. We spoke to Commissioner Bratton recently. He even said the morale and the attitude was as bad as he can remember it in a long time. What'd you make of the cops turning their backs on de Blasio, and just how bad is it right now?
Look, the relationship is getting a lot better. I was in Ireland not too long ago when I saw that image on TV where the cops did turn their back on the mayor. And I can understand the frustration and the anger of the police officers. But I think turning your back on the mayor, I think politically that was a bad move to do, because the people I was with at the time that saw the same image I saw said, does this mean the cops are turning their back on the citizens of the people of New York? And I said no. And I think right now today the relationship with the mayor and the police department is getting a lot better.
The idea of stop and frisk certainly was a big campaign issue a couple of years ago. Did it, in the end, Luke, is it the right thing to stop doing it as policing, as a tactic, or was it vital to keep crime down?
Look, it's a great tool for the police to use, stop, question and frisk. I think it is vital to keep it up, because even in my book, I outline a couple of cases where I was personally involved, stop, question and frisk a couple of people. And on one occasion, I stopped one guy who had a loaded 9mm illegal pistol in his waistband, who shouldn't have had that gun. And with the stop, question and frisk, here you are taking an illegal gun off the street who's in the hands of the wrong person, and it's possibly you're saving one life, and every life counts in New York City.
You know the flip side to this, and certainly I would think growing up in Ireland when you did, the perception that certain people are singled out, whether it be for the faith or in this case for the color of their skin. What do you make right now, whether it's a Dateline in Missouri, or where you see what happened to Tamir Rice in Cleveland, or people saw what played out in Staten Island in the Eric Garner case, and I can keep going on, Luke. Do you understand the frustration, especially in communities of color, that say, hey, there's a justice for guys that look like you guys, and then there's a different justice for guys that look like us? How do you navigate that?
I personally understand the frustration of the community. I'm from a town called Finglas in the north side of Dublin. It is a disadvantaged area. And we were treated differently, especially when you would apply for a job within Ireland. People would look at you differently because you're from a disadvantaged area. I fully understand the frustration of the people in regards to all of these incidents. But what I would like to say to them is, when these incidents happen, you have a right to a peaceful protest. It's very, very important that you let the criminal justice system take its course. The prosecutors and the grand jurors, they will decide the fate if the actions of the officer are justifiable or not. And remember one thing, the grand jurors here in these cases, they are from the community where these crimes happen, and we must respect the decision they make.
What were the biggest triumphs in your career, both as a detective and then also with the feds, and then also what do you miss most about the job?
Well, answer your question last first. I miss most of the people. You know, the people I worked with, to me, in the NYPD were truly the best detectives you could ever work with, and I sincerely mean that from the bottom of my heart. The most intelligent, the most bravest people you could ever meet in the world. But for me, the biggest triumphs where I was made Detective of the Month. I've received 18 medals from the NYPD. I have received commendations from the FBI thanking me on behalf of the American people for the work I've done. But for me, I suppose the biggest of all put together was to achieve my dream to be a homicide detective and to spend the majority of my career in Bronx homicide, investigating homicides.
There's so much more in this book, from corruption to the first-hand account of 9/11, and so much more, and a really colorful and amazing career. Again, the book, NYPD Green, a memoir. Luke Waters, thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we take a look at some local headlines. Stay with us.